So, what's up with the Grogu here?
Remember we talked about this. Remember we had Panda Sub was on last week. This is this week's special guest.
Oh, okay, special guest Grogu. All right, cool. Let's just do that, I guess.
All right. What's your first question?
So, what kind of retro games you into, Grogu?
Welcome to Card.
Calling all retro gamers.
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all retro gamers!
Calling all retro gamers!
Poor Grogu. What's going on, everyone?
That's our own bits.
it's Rich Haywood here for Bacon Ice Cream Production Team RTFC with my partner in crime, Ed, RetroKillDashNine. What's going on? What's going on? So it is another episode of Calling All Retro Gamers. We are having a good time today. Got some cool topics for you. And before that, let's ease into it. Nice little intro and chat. What's going on, man? How's it been going?
RetroKillDashNine! Ian Hobbies. Okay, sorry. I was waiting for his comment to show up before I could do that. I can't officially do that until he says it.
Nice. What's up, Ian? What's going on?
Going good, man. I know we were talking a little bit, it's one of those hard work weeks where we're just like, let's just talk about games. Let's literally blow off some steam. Got some cool stuff to talk about. Just, fired up to be here. And, speaking of retro things to get, I may have taken some pictures or tweeted out, but, rarely do get some pickups. But I just thought this would kind of be interesting to share. And these are you can see that here.
Very cool. Very cool.
Game Boy Advance, but what? Why is it in? Why is it in a Nintendo DS case? And so this is kind of a local place, like near my brother-in-law lives at the mall. I guess FX Game Change.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. And so this was Midway's classic hits. And so what's funny is when you open it up, because I think some people forget that I can't even talk. The DS is backwards compatible,
right?
And so you can fit in the actual cart.
Yep.
And there we go. So you kind of take it out there. And what's funny about that? When I went to take it off, wow, that shows you how cheap it is. I don't know if you can see, but the tab on it's just broke.
Oh no, it just snapped off. Oh no.
But here's the thing though. So this is a DS case. I don't think this is I think maybe I don't know if they just like printed this because you can see this was like $5. And when you actually go to get the games, like the game wasn't in it. So I brought it up, and I thought they were just gonna just scan it and then hand me the loose card. I didn't know.
They just popped it in the box.
Yeah. So I didn't know.
I mean, that's definitely custom on the end. I mean, look at that. So even on the man, I can't even talk right now.
It's rubbed off.
The end label that's custom on the side on the. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
That's custom right there. So yeah, that's definitely a custom print. That's cool though.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, yeah, because and then the other one that I got was the Konami the Konami Collection, and then
nice.
Same thing was Test the Strength. Hey, the tab stayed intact. But I can kind of tell you why I wanted these games, and also. I have a little interesting story to kind of go with this. So, as you all know, there's certain collections that we'll just never, I think I'm allowed to say the word Evercade. We'll probably never unlikely to go to the Evercade, right?
Sure.
So I want to get my fix, and for me, like the GBA is kind of like your hybrid, like NES, SNES, Game Boy systems, and so because it can do it all.
Yep.
And really, I was mainly looking for the greatest hits because I wanted to play a version of Robotron.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good game.
A YouTuber who I apologize name, I can't remember, picked it up and it said it was actually pretty decent with one button because it's like normally that's a twin stick shooter and one button shoots and then the other button can kind of hold you in place so you can spin around. It works pretty well. And then you get Defender, which plays pretty good. Joust works, but Sinistar just plays bad on home console ports because in the arcade it had like that 49 direction stick, so that's really difficult regardless. But I didn't get it for that, so that was pretty cool. And then the Konami Collection, I mainly actually got because that had like Frogger on it,
mm-hmm.
and then it kind of has like some other game. It has Russian Attack, which is actually like really all right, maybe Russian Attack.
Yeah,
actually
Russian Attack's pretty cool.
And some other like it's like some other like arcadey things, but like according to price charting or whatever, they were like $5. And for something like that for loose, that's kind of what I want to pay for something, because then I get some fun out of it, something different. It's a collection. So quick kind of funny story about I just want to tell you how I got this. So I went there with the family with my with my wife and daughter, and then my brother-in-law and his child. So we all went to this like cool Mexican restaurant.
Yeah.
Had a few drinks, but I wasn't like drunk. Like I was still with it. So then I wanted to go in there and check it out. And for me, again, I say that's the perfect price because if paying $5, I know I'm at least going to get one game. If it sits on the shelf or not, then I don't care. Versus like if I pay $100 for a game, then I'm like, I would have to play it. Like I couldn't just sit that on the shelf and not, because that's hence like Golden Axe Warrior, like that would just be like, if you're like, nope, I'm never going to do anything with it. But
no.
So, but you know what I mean? Like it would have to be like that quality of a game for me to invest that type of money. Like I want to look at it, I want to play, whatever. So I go there and I talk to the guy and I said, hey, do you have any of these like retro collections? And I'm looking for, because I've asked those questions at other places. I'm like, do you have the Midway? Do you have Konami? And the guy's like looking at me like I'm an alien. And he's like, no, like he didn't really know what I was talking about. I'm like, okay. He was like, first, he was a little bit rude. He's like, here's a section over there. I'm like, I know I've had a few drinks, but I know what I'm talking about. And so then I find those and go back, and I'm like, hey, I found what I was looking for. And then I can kind of tell that like he kind of like felt bad. So then this point, like my wife is caught up with me. It's funny because she's standing next to me, and he's like, why do all the weirdos come up to me? But no, he was kind of kidding. And he was all nice, but what I'd never seen before, and I should have taken a picture in the wild, in the display case, they actually had like the white Evercade in the premium pack, and I've never seen that like in a U.S. store.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, we just got this in last week and all that," and I'm like, "Well, I'm a YouTuber and I'm into that and everything." And he's like, "Could you write down the name of your channel?" So I don't know if he was interested or not, but I've never, and I'm like, I don't know if he was just saying that just to blow smoke or whatever. So I did, and kind of walked out. But it was just kind of interesting because like he kind of thought I was crazy, and I'm like, I don't know. I assume when I go to a retro store that people are familiar. I'm like, I know these collections exist, but I was looking for just any of those collections, willing to pay about $5 or so bucks.
Yeah. That's cool though. And that's great that you found like 2 collections. That's very cool.
Yeah. Get some replay value. But now there's always the problem now there's always the other dilemma that I've been having, because I kind of want to upgrade my screen. And you can, and if you don't want to do any on my GBA, if you don't want to do any soldering and all that, you can do that. You just have to take it apart, and it's not nearly as expensive. Like if you want to get a new shell and all that for under $100, but then I'm like, do I want to? I'm like, but then there's the dilemma: do I want to keep this original, have the long battery life? Do I want it brighter? And then of course I had the purple handheld, which spoils me. So it's like first world retro gamer problems, but.
It's all good.
That's kind of what I've been up to.
Nice, man. Nice. That's excellent times. This week for me, man, I've been slammed, busy, and of course, I just put out a vid on the channel today saying, "Hey, look, this is pretty much it. You get the video, which is also our community prompt for the week. You get all week to answer it because there's nothing coming out until the Evercast on the channel. It's just too crazy." It's just too absolutely nuts over on my end. Lots of life happening, but it is pretty cool. And I was able to kind of get a nod and a hat tip to one of my favorite games of all time, which just celebrated its 25-year anniversary yesterday, which was cool. It was very cool. Of course, that game is Final Fantasy VII. It was such a good time. Such a good time. And it was a wild story. And it was like, it also goes with the prompt itself, which of course is what game is it that you went all in for, which is cool. So can't wait to see everyone's responses. Go in the tab and hang out, watch a video, go on the socials, hit me up because it'd be cool.
I think it's great that you do that because it's so much fun to share retro experiences, and
that's what it's all about, right? It's even what this is about, right? This whole show is about us chilling and talking about cool retro stuff. So I mean, it's just awesome, and it's also incredible that so many times I put out that stuff on the community tab, and so many times still lots of people come back and they chat and it's reciprocal, which is awesome.
It is. Well, I'll tell you why I think it's important to respect when I say people like us, retro gamers, that let's say like your modern gamers, for example, they're playing the games just to enjoy and play the games. Like what I mean by that is like, say my kiddo logs onto a Roblox, she plays it, hangs out with their friends or whatever. It's for us it's more of like a lifestyle. Like it's a memory, it's experiences.
Right.
Like unless you were born to the era of like arcades and all that and picking it up, you would like look at like, why do you care about this game with these horrible graphics? That's probably what like other people see. It's you have to experience it. There's a lot of nostalgia. There's more meaning, I think, than someone's like, oh hey, I just want to go ahead and play a game. And I think I can say that because at the time when playing Nintendo or Super Nintendo, like those guys thought, oh, this is a cool game with graphics. We were just playing those games because we wanted to play games. So who knows, maybe like 10 years from now, maybe Roblox, maybe that'll be like my daughter's retro game. You never
Right. Yeah. I mean,
you never know.
It's going back to last week's conversation, right? You never know when that line crosses. What becomes retro for somebody else is just, somebody else's game that they blinked and was like, wait, it's been 10 years, 10, 15. What is happening in my life?
And those stories take me back because either it could be something that like I never, like nostalgic in a way like I'd never heard about, or something like Final Fantasy VII, and like that's one of those. I want to say that's one of those moments like Super Mario 3 where you had to be there because before then everything was like 2D. Yeah, and it was like the very first like RPG, I believe, or the very first Final Fantasy that had been taken to that whole level of cinematics.
Yes. That is correct. It was the first Final Fantasy that did that. And then there was obviously a whole bunch of RPGs in before that. It didn't have any of near the cachet of a Final Fantasy. There were great games. I think they were actually lost gems in the PlayStation milieu. In the first launch year, I think there were at least 2 games. One that was straddled that line between 2D and 3D. I think there's 3D elements, but really was a 2D game. That's called Beyond the Beyond. It was kind of a cool game. And then just after that was Wild Arms, which was a Sony Studios title that was all full 3D. Had a really cool mechanic too. It was like almost like a fighting mechanic and an RPG at the same time. And then your characters had like guns and stuff. It was really
cool. I always wanted to play. Oh, hey, the original Next Level Gamer joined us. Hey,
Mike, what's up? What's going on? Thanks for stopping by.
We're doing a podcast and we're having trouble speaking this afternoon.
Yeah, right. It was. And
I swear there's nothing in my coffee except for powdered cream.
So I just wanted to chop on it. It has absolutely nothing to do with retro, and we do sometimes do that on this show. And nice little nod there with that mug. But I just have to say, I want to talk about it just real quick. This whole thing about like what is going on here with people buying things and just keep buying more things. So what we're talking about right now is, of course, Sony has gotten into agreement with Bungie, and they're going to acquire Bungie. So it's weird because it was like they were Bungie, and then they were Bungie with Microsoft, and they were Bungie by themselves. Then they were Bungie with Activision, and then they're Bungie by themselves, and then now they're Bungie with Sony. So I guess it's just like, you know what? Maybe the directors over there just want to be with everybody. So then they'll be with Sony for a couple of years, and then they'll be by themselves, and then they go to Nintendo.
You know what? Funny that you mentioned that, because when I read that article that you sent me, hey Pete, I forgot that Bungie owns the whole Halo series.
Well, they don't own the IP though. No.
Did I misread that?
So they just Microsoft on the deal that let them go, they retained the rights to Halo, which is the reason why 343 kept making games when Bungie went on their own. And then when they went to Activision to do Destiny, Destiny became their IP. That's what they took with them. And I think also Bungie does have Marathon and all that other kind of stuff. So in the retro space, there is opportunity to maybe revisit some of that old stuff. So that does bring it back into our retro conversation a little bit. Does now that Sony owns them. Is it just going to be Destiny? Are they going to put them on something else? Do you at that point now have a powerhouse FPS studio? Do you give them something like a Killzone and see what they would do with that property? Or do you do maybe you come back? There's some other properties out there that Sony still owns the IP for. Do you give them a shot at maybe a Resistance? Something like that. Again, these guys do Atmosphere, they do Skybox, they do like all sorts of really cool gameplay as far as shooters go. And I'll tell you this, as far as Bungie goes, they're the best feeling shooters I've ever played. Like bar none. As far as that goes. And I know we're in the weeds and talking about FPS and the retro game space, but still, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
For the
good. I'm glad because
there, brother Mike.
I would say Microsoft would be stupid to give up Halo. So I was like, really? They let it go for the,
Yeah. Modern gaming. Here I am playing in 2022. Yeah, I saw that vid. If people will check that out, go over check out Pete's channel. He just did do that video. I've been slacking. My Ouya has been setting it. I got it set up, and I did that, and I even teased it like 3 months ago, and then did 0 vids.
I was gonna say he's still here. Yeah.
So it's like he got right in there. No, he just got his. So that's cool though. That's cool though. So I mean, I might have to join in the fray though. Now that someone else is actually in the fray that I know is in the conversation, it kind of pushes me to do that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I need to check that out too. Maybe it might be a cool way to emulate some stuff.
And no lie, because here my controller is literally staring me in the face right here. I just need to just plug it back in. It got moved because the VS took its place. It was actually hooked up. So sideloading these mobile games that are defunct. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's all sorts of crazy stuff in there. Building a game for my kids. Oh, that's cool. That's neat. Nice. Building a game for your kids. Hey, if you get that thing set up and you get an APK, you better send that to me. I'll play that. That'd be awesome.
The Adventures of Pete.
Yep. Oh, and then Mike's many of the old Bungie Halo Tomb works at 343. Of course, that would probably be the case. That's a cool thing. Hey, Chris, back. What's up?
Welcome.
Come on. You got the NLG crew all up in here.
Oh,
that's gonna be awesome. Of course, Thursday nights. That's the place we got to go. Check out some awesome everything action. They cover it all. Of course, they're probably going to be talking about this whole Sony buying things and everything else. So that'd be pretty cool. All right, cool. So let's slide on into our topic, shall we? Start talking about some retro goodness. We got our first topic here is what is your definition of a remaster or a remake retro game? I'll let you go ahead and pick that off there.
Alrighty, so I picked this for a reason because people have different definitions, and you can even throw the word port.
Sure.
And, you can even throw the word port in there. So let me give you a great example of what it's not, and I think it defines better. So like what Nintendo has done, let's say with their service having the N64 games and all that. That's literally just like a ROM. That's just like a ROM dump, right? There's no enhancements to the original. You can't play it in widescreen. Mm-hmm. Everything is the same. I mean, you can play it online, but I don't really count that.
Sure.
For me, what I consider to be a remaster, and I know it's kind of funny because even in the general gaming community, people complain there's no new original ideas, but people will buy a remaster. Basically, a remaster is you take what the Grand Theft Auto trilogy was supposed to be. So for me, my definition of a remaster is you take a game, you don't change any of the you don't change any of the graphics, you don't add any maybe really any new features, but you make it like HD. So you make it so it looks good on a 4K television.
Sure.
Technically you could kind of say with the Evercade, they didn't change anything, but all those games they look good on it scales up, they look good. So if you were to take a game and not change anything at all, make it so it's playable on modern hardware, and you can maybe play it in widescreen. Like that's for me, that's my definition of a remaster. You're making it accessible.
Kind of like the audio approach to a remaster, right? So you got an album that was recorded way back in the day, it was put on a vinyl or a cassette, and then you get the remaster on CD. It's got better bit rate, that kind of thing.
But what's funny about that? Like sometimes though with remasters, they do change things. So funny that you mentioned that, because I could remember. I can't remember what Beatles album it was that was a remaster, but they kind of took away some of the sound effects or some of the charm. So sometimes and I'll use Grand Theft Auto, like that was some of the thing, like they tried to enhance it, but they took away some of the cool lighting effects and other things that made the game great. Like people weren't looking for it. They were just wanting to be able to play the games like on a modern console the way they remembered them.
Right.
For me, like a remake, it could be one or two things. So it could be, let's say, like you take a game and you just you improve the graphics, like something like the Disney Afternoon series, where you make everything really modern, like really modernized.
Sure.
I think that's the difference of you're changing the graphics. It could even be, it was a 2D game, you make it 3D. The Recharge series kind of falls into a special place. That is kind of more of a remix, because like Centipede, like Centipede Recharge, I wouldn't call that Centipede. I would say it's inspired. You know what I mean? Because it's like all those Recharge games, I think, wouldn't you agree? Like they play completely differently. They're different. Atari's trying to do something new. I wouldn't consider it a remaster or a remake, because they just didn't improve the graphics. They changed, they added achievements.
And in some of the games, they actually physically altered your relationship with the gameplay. The gameplay loop was altered enough where it is actually its own entity in some cases. And maybe not so Missile Command, but certainly Centipede plays different than Centipede Recharge plays different than Centipede, etc. We can get into that a little more.
Like in Asteroids, you get the triple shots, or
exactly
some of that stuff that you've shown off from your videos. So that's kind of the difference. So that's kind of my that's kind of my definition. A remaster is you're not touching the game. And the funny thing is, because sometimes on Steam, I've seen what was it, the Dungeons and Dragons series, the arcade versions. I remember this was maybe years ago, and then they had a demo, and I was like, cool, let me try this, but literally it was just a ROM dump, and they didn't have all the scan line features or anything. You would be better off playing it on MAME. Right. But even something let's say the Konami Connect, the Konami collections, for Contra, right? That's kind of it. That's not just a ROM dump. You can't play it in widescreen, but they have other features and they have challenges. So is that same with the Mega Man series and all that? They still leave everything intact. It looks great, But I know it's and for some of those, especially the Mega Man series, there's actually challenges you can play. So I don't know if that's a remaster or remake. I think maybe it kind of falls into a remaster-ish.
Well, or maybe there needs to be a third pillar, right? That there's remasters, which I kind of agree with you as far as that goes. In my mind, a remaster is a slight visual upgrade, but not a paradigm shifting upgrade. Something like 2D to 3D, I wouldn't consider a remaster. Sharpened 2D graphics, bringing it from a 420p to a 1080p scale would fall into the remaster, in my opinion. Something that doesn't fundamentally alter the way the game is played also is a key part of the remaster, in my mind, for sure. But when you get some of those other games that start doing those things, you can get into remake territory. But unless so in my mind, a remake is something that you had the core idea of the game, whether it be a action adventure or an RPG or whatever. That core thing that doesn't change really. Some elements of the story may change because it is a remake, but but in and of itself, it is still kind of the same core experience. But what makes it the remake is that everything else around it can change. The perfect example is, of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? It is a true remake in my mind, because when you first start the game, everything about it has changed. The battle system has changed. The way the camera works has changed. The way that your relationship with the world view, the world map has all changed. All of that has changed. So, and the game feels different, but the story beats are kind of similar. There's some here and there, some extra things, some things removed, that kind of thing, but you still have the same thread, right? In this case, in the very specifically for Final Fantasy VII Remake, I mean, you still start at the very beginning and you still end at the end of the tower battle in Midgar, and you go on the bike chase and you get to the end of the saucer and you're ready to go out on your adventure. That's where this one ends, of course, but so does the first. Basically almost the end of the first disc is you doing all that stuff in Maker anyway. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because a remaster would be just kind of, and you can Rigatoni. I can say that since I'm Italian. But sorry, I just derailed myself. But I'm glad you bring that up, because technically, like, let's say if you were to play like the original Final Fantasy VII on an emulator that's scaled up on a 4K, like, that's a remaster. Like you said, they kept the game intact. That's a great example of the Final Fit. That's definitely remake. You know what else is a great remaster that I just realized that's been around forever is Super Mario All-Stars.
Yeah.
Because that's just like they just took the 8-bit games, made them 16-bit, but they didn't completely destroy it or anything else. Which is kind of funny, because for GBA they did that, like with Mario 2 and Mario 3. Although the only thing that's annoying, and maybe they did this for kids, every time, like when you die in just the regular Mario Brothers and like in the Super Mario Brothers, you go Mamma Mia. That just annoys. They felt the need to add some sound effects, but they did some slight improvements, like in Super Mario 2. They actually show you the different characters, like power levels, like their jump and speed, and all that. Nothing. And again, I would still consider that a remake, because, like you said, it doesn't change the fundamentals. It's just like if you didn't have a manual, you could see that. But I think for me, there's an important distinction, because it also kind of goes to the next topics that relate.
That's true. That's very true.
That relate to that, which I'm ready for, unless you want to add anything else to it.
I mean, I guess not really. Like, I guess also kind of keeping with the theme, because it's just in my mind. It looks like FF7 might actually be the one that got all of the examples, right? Like it has its original version. They did get a remaster when it hit Steam, because I would consider that one actually a remaster.
Yes.
Everything was brought up. The sprites, not the sprites, but the polygons were actually changed and altered a little bit to make them improved a little. And there wasn't much content revision in the game. It was just brought up to a modern standard so it could play well on a computer. And then, of course, on the remake, they just, they're doing, and they're still working on it. Like who knows when we'll see remake part 2 and part 3. I can't wait for it though, because I mean, I have no idea what they're going to do, but if I think it is what I think it is, the second game is basically going to be like, oh, here's the rest of the world map starting to come into focus. And since they put so much attention to detail in Midgar in the first remake, I cannot wait to see what they do with all of that.
I can tell you where I draw the line, like in the later, like the newer console Final Fantasy series. Once I saw like Cloud and his friends like get on like motorcycles, like drive in cars and all that. I'm like, no, you've lost me.
Oh no, you're talking about Final Fantasy 15.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to each their own. Each game has its own feel and different thing. They all have different characters. They all have different like stories. That most of these games are literally their own microcosm. They have nothing to do with each other. With the exception being, of course, the need to consistently make a additional story to Final Fantasy 13, because that went into a trilogy, and I think that was the only time outside of X2 for 10-2 where they started doing that. 10-2 was even a spinoff. where you get to, you just get to hang out with those characters a little more, which was cool. But Rigatoni says Wii Mario Brothers collection was super lazy. The Wii Anniversary Edition. I mean, there's some times where it's not a hit, right? Not every remaster is going to be a smoking success. But there are some winners. I've been hearing that Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster, what they call it, the Ultimate Editions, that those are really good. I want to get into those. The Mass Effect games were really, really a surprise for me because I didn't think I was going to like them at all. And I wound up just getting consumed by Mass Effect 1 on the Xbox.
See what's interesting, and I think that sometimes, and this will go into the other topic, but I think sometimes developers think that if they just take a game that's a hit that people love and they release it as a remaster, that's not good enough. And so sometimes I think less is more, and I think sometimes they feel the need they have to do more to a game which they can actually destroy the true spirit of it. So that's what I find interesting. I think there's a market for both. I think there's people who want games to be completely reimagined, and maybe there's someone like myself that I'm like, no, I just want to be able to play an older game on modern hardware. Don't touch anything. But at the same time, don't do a lazy port and dump a ROM over where I feel like I have more options. Playing it. More options with a free emulator because that also sucks. It depends how much you're charging. Okay, if you're charging $5 for a game, fine. But if you're charging like $20 or more bucks for a remake, especially if it's like a full remake, I expect there to be something more than just like a port.
Well,
really,
and that gets us into that next topic. Then, should retro or classic games be left in their original format? And if so, where do you draw that line? When is it okay to just go, take the property and do whatever you want with it? Or when is it you must just keep the precious?
Gotcha.
And leave it alone. So what do you think?
So here's kind of my thinking. And cool.
Very, very
and
cool.
I'll use TV for an example because I think people can relate. Can relate, can kind of go ahead and relate to it.
Yep.
And so there's a few things, right? I'll talk about like growing up, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, from great movies, great Christmas movies. But for me, when they started doing that DVD, if Macaulay Culkin isn't in a Home Alone, I don't recognize it as part of the franchise because at that point they just used the name Home Alone. They put some other kid actors. Sure. They don't, I don't even know if the Wet Bandits were in it. To me, it's just disgusting. Kind of, similar things like the 3 Indiana Jones movies, like the Crystal Skull. I don't really recognize that. We were talking about the Karate Kid. I recognize
the next Karate Kid. Yeah.
Well, Daniel LaRusso has to be in it. I'm sorry, he's the main character. For me, I don't recognize that. The fourth one is being part of canon. But and here's where you can kind of something about Cobra Kai. That's a total spin-off, and now you get to hear the other side of the story, and then and then welcome to Kark, everyone. And then it turns out that maybe now Daniel's the bully. Maybe he's this rich, you know what I mean? And you get to hear the truth. So, but that's okay because they didn't. It was just an expansion of the story. It showed them as being older, older later on. They didn't destroy the true spirit of what it was all about. So they stuck to that and had callbacks. So
yeah.
Why do I bring that up? So for me, for certain games, here's what I'm okay with. While I would rather, let's say, for me personally, play the original version of Centipede because of the nostalgia and all that, I'm okay with the recharge because it's a remix. It's a total. It's based off of it. Atari's bringing it to new, and that's with all the recharge series. They're bringing it to a completely new audience. I don't feel like they're destroying the original or doing it. It's kind of like when you have a band and someone else does a really good cover song.
Sure.
You still you can still enjoy the original and maybe and it's fine if somebody likes that cover better. They've been inspired. I feel, if anything, I feel like the recharge is more paying tribute to it. Now, with that said, what I wish they would do for people like me is that I wish you could unlock the original, unlock the original game. And yes, if you have an Atari VCS, you get all those original ones. But if you're a schlub like me who has a PS4, you don't. So that would be a bonus.
It would be
what I don't like is, let's say if it was like Castlevania, right? There's a reason why like the 3D versions of it for N64 aren't that popular. Like if they went ahead and did a remake of Castlevania and they made it all 3D, like no. And like, to be honest, an unpopular opinion, like with Metroid Dread, like for me, that's supposed to be 2D. That looks way too 3D to me. Like with the background art and everything else. Like for me, if they really wanted to do a true 2D sequel, they would have left it as pixel art. Okay. So like for me, I'd rather play the Game Boy. So so I don't know. For me, I honestly feel like if a game starts off, if it's a 2D series, keep it in the 2D pixel art, because once you start to change that, then some games, I don't know, they look like they could be more like on a mobile device. Like it's kind of like those weird, you know what I mean? It's kind of like those weird kind of in between kind of graphics. Now with the Ghouls and Ghosts reimagination, they still kept to the true art style. So I think it kind of depends. So for me, it's like I'm fine with the recharge version, but what I don't want someone to do is take a game and put a new skin on it, unless, of course not. Now I'm going to contradict everything I said. Unless if you played like the Castlevania Rebirth that's on the Wii, that you have to now play like legally through piracy, because like that was like a remake of one of the Game Boy versions, and that actually was done so well that like you would recognize it as a new game. But again, they didn't do something over the top and make it super 3D graphics. They turned that into 16-bit. So like, I'm fine with that. But something like for me, like Disney Afternoon, I've seen like they've made that way too cartoony. And so I'll even give I'll even give another unpopular opinion, then I'll let you speak. Sure. So, and this might tie into the next one. So to me, I know a lot of people out there like love Streets of Rage 4, right? For me, would you be surprised that like looking at that game like doesn't appeal to me at all? Because really? the graphic style is just so different. When I look at that, to me it looks nothing like the original Streets of Rage. Like the characters resemble it, but because it's so far removed from the 16-bit graphics, like I would rather just give me Streets. I would rather have Streets of Rage 1 through 3. Kind of like the same thing with Golden Axe or anything else. Like for me, I would want those originals. I think it's fine that series exists. I think it's cool if people like it, but for me, like I'm not into that. I'd rather have the originals. Now, with that said, about being left alone, you could also interpret this topic another way. I think it's great, and of course, I have to bring up the Evercade, like the Intellivision collection. How they did how they improved upon the controls, so you could actually play that with a real controller. Like that's awesome. Yep. Like that's the one downside of FPGA, right? Like improvements like that, like with better controllers, so you can play it. I think is awesome. Okay, I know I've talked a lot, so
no, it's all good. I mean, it's an awesome topic. I think in my opinion, because the original exists, right? As long as it is preserved and is able to be brought forward in its original form to be played. Outside of that, I am all for everyone trying to play in that sandbox, because you never know when someone is going to hit on that thing that you never thought of and give you an experience that maybe even rivals the original experience of your nostalgia, right? Which is something that excites me about some other things that we can talk about. Is going to lead right into that next topic. But before I go further and talk a little more, I want to dip back in to the chat, because you guys have been awesome, and you guys have been really hopping in here. Brian F. here says, I like games that'll give you both the original and the new one in a collection. Absolutely.
Yes.
That's a great point. I love that as well. I think it's a great, customer service, right? Hey, we're going to do this cool thing. We're going to play in that sandbox. We're going to try to give you a cool new experience, but just in case, we've got this other thing here. Oh, wait, it's the original one that you remember. You can always play that too. I think that's cool. I think it's
I'm fine with that. And then you would maybe get, like for instance, like that's one of the downsides with like the Street Fighter collections on PS4. I'm like, because, but if I've had some fun with those, but it's like, just give me the original, And so I think if they did that, to his point, you could make both markets happy and price it right. But now with like DLC though, it's like you pay $5, you get this level, or like something like Black Widow or like Recharge, like if you could even unlock the original, like that would that would excite me, because then I knew I would like, hey, I could have some fun with this new one, but then the older version I would really and, I wish they would do that. It could be unlockable. You don't have to get it right away. It's make you look forward to something. So yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. Rigatoni wants to know what we thought of Mario 3D All Stars on the Switch and whether or not that is considered a remaster. I would say yes. That is most likely a remaster. They didn't change too much of the thing. Now with Mario games, it's real hard because there are some rumors that when they do these remaster reissues of these games, sometimes they mess with the jump mechanics between games, and sometimes merge the jump mechanics between games, and they are actually different between the first, second, and third game. The jumping is a little different, the arc's a little different, the feel is a little different, so that sets people like speedrunners off in a tizzy when they look at games like 3D All Stars
and input lag. And so I'll tell you why, for me to consider that a port, and maybe we should have thrown that in there, is that you would think in this day and age with like the beautiful screen on the Switch, they would make it so you could actually play it in full widescreen. And what's nuts about that is that the community has taken the Nintendo 64 version, the N64 Mario, and you can compile the story. You can play that on anything, and it runs smoother and it looks better. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing like how the community, and that could be a whole other topic, but like how the community cares a lot more about these games than some publishers. Like they care about it more than Nintendo. And what irritates me that Nintendo is totally missing out off of, if they took all their back catalog and they actually offered you the games, let's say like on their physical like SD, on their physical media SD cards, and none of this nonsense subscription, I probably would get a Switch Lite just for that, just to be able to have like those physical collections. And they already have the licenses, and it would take them such little effort. But anyway, that's a whole other.
No, yeah, absolutely. So Chris Fastback, he's in here, says, I'm good with a free refresh of a classic, like what Amika was doing, and I can still play the original, no biggie. I agree. And that is also very much going to lead into that final topic, because of what I enjoy about those very things, those like remixes, if you will, the reimaginings of these games, because it does kind of breathe a little new life, and sometimes even plays a little differently. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
Hey, Rigatoni's got a lot of good stuff.
Rigatoni's all up in here. What do you think about like Wonder Boy and the Dragon Trap, which is a game that just came out recently on Switch and PS4 and Xbox, I do believe, as well. It's Steam, where it is essentially a new Wonder Boy game, but I think it's actually a remake of one of the games with some added content, and they gave it a different name, because I don't know if there was, unless there was a game in the outside of the United States that was called Wonder Boy and the Dragon Trap, but I don't know. For me, I don't remember that game. But it's got like a cool art style. It's got new music. It's got all that kind of cool stuff. So I mean, I'd be all for something like that. And
I haven't played that
Wonder Boy game, so.
But here's a great. So here's and I feel embarrassed we didn't bring this up. I think we might have talked about it a little bit on Undercast, but like Sonic Mania, like that's a great example where they completely kept everything 2D. It's a whole new. See, I'm for that too. Like if it's a whole new game, but they keep the same, like they keep the same art style. Like if Sega all of a sudden, like here's like Sega all of a sudden decided, hey, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna release my mind went blank. What's that game that you play? The Golden Axe Warrior 2, or like
sure. Yeah.
Like if they did that and they kept it like here's what would be a perfect thing. If they kept that in 16-bit graphics, made it a whole new game, and then once you beat the game, you could unlock that Master System 8-bit original and just have it be like untouched. That would be the perfect.
Then I like just go dancing on the street, like on the day that's announced, and then and then it just becomes that other game that I will go all in for. Yes.
And I think then that gives you value, because then it's one of those things where they would make it where you wouldn't have never had to play the original. You get a cool Zelda type game, and then people, like ourselves, we have motivation. Not only would we want to play that, we'd have motivation to like beat it.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the value, and if I could play that like on my PS4, I would pay like 20 to 30, but like no questions. I'd be like, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
So that's
that'd be awesome. But yeah, so Rigatoni finishes up here with the Wonder Boy thing, saying that you can actually switch between the old and new art style on the fly. I love games that do that. I love
like Alex Kidd.
Yeah,
like Alex Kidd, you could do that. Yeah.
I love that kind of thing because it gives you the best of both worlds, and it's just a really neat feature. He also says, as far as those things go, I say offer both versions of the same package or a bundle. Yeah, 100% there. What do you think about Metroid Zero Mission?
That's an expensive game.
Zero Mission, between Zero Mission and the original, it's kind of like the same thing that they did with Lunar, really. So they re-released Lunar 1 like 3 different times on between the Sega CD version, the PS1 version, and the handheld. And actually that's one of those things that's in some ways sometimes a negative, right? You get a release like the Sega CD version of Lunar: The Silver Star Story, for example, right? I loved that game. I knew exactly how to play that game. And when the PSX version got announced, I got super pumped about it. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. But what they did was they changed the way the dungeons worked. They changed a little bit of way the leveling structure works in the game. And they made the game just a little bit more difficult. And it broke my experience because I was coming from the Sega CD version. I knew exactly what to do. And I'm like, I just want to do what I know how to do in this other game. And it just kind of like broke.
And it broke the nostalgia. Yeah, see that. Yeah, anything that breaks the nostalgia. No, Zero Mission. That's the version for Game Boy Advance, right?
Which one?
Metroid Zero Mission. I think that's what we're
Metroid Zero Mission was Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. But I want to play that one. I've seen it. It looks awesome, and I think that's the version too that when you beat it, it actually unlocks the original NES version.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And it good. It's another good thing of them doing some kind of like a remaster, like remix of the game, and they give you the original on the same package, which is good. Because
and then it supports video game preservation.
Yep, that's right. Rigatoni loves Streets of Rage 4, but it wasn't meant to be a remake. Yeah, I mean, of course,
a new game.
New Battletoads was in that cartoon style as well. Yes, I remember that. I didn't actually get to play that new Battletoads game, but that's it could be its own topic, just talking about Battletoads and all the crazy nonsense that game is. Pete, he's back, says Atari Recharge Series, such a great series, playable everywhere. Yes, agree. Almost 4 for 4, Pete. I'm going to give it a solid 3 out of 4 in that Recharge Series, being solid picks. The one that just misses the mark is Missile Command, and I wish that they would just go back and re-release Recharged, Missile Command Recharged, and say, oh yeah, by the way, here's all the leaderboards, here's all the challenges, here's all that stuff that you missed from the other 3 games that we did, that we added them to. But Missile Command, just it was a great step to say this is the proof of concept that we can do the Recharge games in, but man, or even just patch it,
They really need to, because you can play that on your phone, and then that's where they kind of made it more of a free to play. And then I agree. They need to turn that into a buy to play and fix it.
Yeah. Oh, Rigatoni says, is that you talking about Wonder Boy and the Dragon Trap being an SMS game, and that you think I would like it? Yes. I mean, I would like to play all of those things, because it's a good time. Yes, and then of course Pete says that is the worst of the bunch. I agree. I mean, sorry people that make the Recharge series. Missile Command was just a little bit of a miss for me as well. But speaking of all that stuff, it's original retro games versus Recharge version. Let's chat about that a little bit. I'll let you go ahead again, Ed, because these all three of these were your original topics, so I'll give you the
yeah. Because I hear people talk about things from time to time, and I think for me the big thing is as long as the original doesn't get lost, it's just kind of like I know this would never happen, but if 10 years from now, if somebody never heard of the original Centipede and they thought that was, I'm like, it's kind of like when a movie gets
version was the original.
Yeah. So for me, my whole thing is that with all these original games, and I'll be honest, for me, there's no reason to change the format. There's no reason to do a remake or any of that junk. The original games are fine as they are. With that said, if companies want to bring them to a new audience and people get enjoyment out of it, I think that's fine. I'm not going to say, oh, because you don't play the original Centipede, you're a loser. No, that's fine.
Right.
But with that said, though, I don't, I think the original shouldn't get, they get lost. And so for me, it was cool to watch, Centipede and all that. I'm like, just give me the, give me the original. But then again, though, there's some issues like the original, again, going back to the Evercade, it's only available in a vertical format. So it's could be, it would have been kind of interesting, maybe if they could have had the recharged and somehow made it so you could maybe play it better on original team. Maybe you can't with the vertical format. I don't know, but I like the other things too with the Remake series is that they're going to release them separately, and then I'm sure they'll release them as a bundle later on, and it'll probably be cheaper. So
but that's the nature of video game sales in general, right? You get that tail and you get all those monies as much as you possibly can until it starts drying up a little bit, and then of course you collect them all in a bundle to see if you can get a little more revenue for somebody who's waiting for them to do just that, or something like that, which is kind of cool. Now my take on this particular topic, because I don't really see it as versus, I guess, original games only versus recharge. I say let's do it all, because it's so awesome what Atari is doing right now. I really have to tip my hat to them, because Centipede, which was a game that I like to play, but it's not my top tier, right? It's not my favorite games of all time to play is Centipede. If I was faced with a whole bunch of other classic Atari games, a Centipede probably wouldn't be on that top 10 even, for me to just jump in and play at any given moment. But Centipede Recharge starting to change my mind a little because I just love the gameplay loop in that game. It's really awesome. I think it's really fresh. It's a really fresh take on this game. And I think that newer audiences introduced to Centipede through the Recharge series, I think they would dig it too, because it's fun. You got really bright and vibrant graphics. You got a really awesome killer soundtrack. It's really cool. It's fresh and new, yet still, it's still like married to that original idea, which I think is really, really cool. Asteroids is similar the same way, although it's different for me. I prefer the original 2600 version of Asteroids to just about any other version of Asteroids out there, including Asteroids Recharge, but that's just because I've probably put in my lifetime as a young child thousands of hours. No hyperbole, thousands of hours into Asteroids on 2600. That's just what I had. So, but does that mean that Asteroids Recharge isn't an awesome game? No, of course not. It is a super awesome game. Now, there is another game that is Asteroids-like that I think is maybe even better than Asteroids Recharged, and that's Super Stardust on the PS3. That game was phenomenal. I couldn't believe how good that game was. It was super, super awesome. I loved it so much. Fun fact, it was actually the very first game on PlayStation 3 to ever receive trophies. I was just so happy that was the game that was first, because no matter what it was, I was into that whole, I wanted to be in that ramp to get the first amount of trophies. I was happy that game was first because I just got to play it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like a little shooter thing. And then the more I played it, I'm like, wow, this game is so good. And then I wound up finding out But of course, developers housemark. They go on to make all these crazy great games. They become a big development studio and make this great game. Well, great game to some on PS5 called Returnal. It's really good stuff. It's really good stuff.
So here's my other issue, and this is kind of my whole hang up on. So for me, like, if I'm going to pay for a digital game, there's a certain price point, because after a while you get all these digital games that they get hidden. It's, when you have physical media, you can look at it, you have the booklets and everything else. So just to give you an idea, like, even though like Contra is one of my favorite all-time series, and that whole collection retails for $20, like, I kind of held it, like, I was happy to pay $5 for that, because I knew that if I mainly got that for the original one. If I saw the other versions, I mean, those are pretty cool, but I knew if I occasionally played it, it would be fine. Like, for me, if I spend money on something, I have to use it. And so if it's digital, then you can't even look at it, right? It's not something like the Worms collection that I'm looking at on my shelf. So,
Sure.
So the reason I bring that up, so for me, it's like, if I were to spend $10, like, for some of these recharge games, I may only play it a couple times. But if you could get all the recharge games, maybe for, if you could get a collection of them for $20, then at least I can switch. Then I can switch back and forth, kind of like what I do with the Evercade. The Evercade. And I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about that, but like, or even like these collections. I can switch back and forth, and then to me, that it's more worth it, because, well, it's a newer game, it's still a remade game, but sometimes with some of those score-based games, unless there's just the nostalgia, you can only play it like so many times. So if I could switch back and forth, then for me that would make it more worthwhile. Or if some like, if that collection came to Evercade, oh my god! Like, if they reported it over, then that my mind would be blown, and I would be all about it. So that's a whole other topic, like having physical media versus virtual,
digital,
and digital advantages of that. But that's kind of one other thing too, is that for me, I like when you're and that's why microtransactions are so successful. You spend $2 or $3 on a game, that's fine. You do that several hundred times, or you do that like you can increasingly you can spend hundreds of dollars for a game that really shouldn't cost. That's all I'm saying.
No, yeah, and I get you. I mean, but even still, like, it's kind of like with this whole recharge or reimagine kind of thing. That's one of the biggest draws to the Amico for me, is that, right? That very thing. Like, I get to play yet another version of Missile Command. You get to play another version of Moon Patrol. You get to play another version of Night Stalker and Astro Smash, and like all these great games, Cloudy Mountain. It's just really cool, because for me, I'm at the point where, like, I have all these great games, right? I have the 125 digitally collected on an Ultimate Flashback right at my feet, right? So if I wanted to play any one of the 125 games that came out on the Intellivision right now, I could just hit a button and I'm playing them, right? But it's like that sandbox thing, right? I want to put people in the sandbox and see, like, well, what if you played around with this IP a little bit? What would you give me? And from the trailers and from things that I've held in my hand and played myself, I gotta say, it's very exciting stuff. Like playing the new version of Astro Smash, for example, very, very cool. Getting to play the new versions of like skiing and like that kind of stuff, and Moon Patrol, also very cool.
But here's the difference, and I think I don't think there's any trolls here we can talk about Nico. So
yeah, sure, yeah.
So here's the difference, though, because, and I'm glad you brought up like Astro Smash. So what I feel that like Amico is doing is they're taking it to the next level, right? It's not just a port, it's not just a reimagine. For example, for me, like, let's say doing like a recharge game and just like adding achievements for content, like. To me, that's lazy, because you're going to go through the achievements. What's cooler, and I'll take Astro Smash, is, hey, you can have multiplayer. You can do things you can do things in the original, like they're adding on the things you couldn't do into the original game. Right. Not only that, it's a whole new system. It's a whole new controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they just like took their version of Astro Smash and put it on the PS4, there wouldn't be anything special. There wouldn't really be anything special about it. It would kind of be more of a recharge. But now you take that. Right. And you put it with the controller. It's I don't want to say the recharge series are a lazy approach, but I'm just saying that, like, with the Amico they're doing it more. They're like, we're giving you a specialized console for a special version of game. We're doing couch co-op. We're making it so your they're doing a lot more. Like, that's, I kind of feel like if you're going to really do a remake or recharge version, take it to the next level. Go all out. like that.
Yeah.
You know, like
I mean,
something like that version of Astro Smash that gets me excited.
Yeah, add cool new audio, add backgrounds, add boss fights that didn't exist in the previous game. Like, I mean, that's cool stuff, right? You know, it's you know, it kind of gets lost in the sauce with everyone talking about this thing, because you know it is a hot topic, I guess, in some circles. But at the end of the day, it's just a cool piece of plastic that's going to play some cool games in a different way, and that's all I care about. Right? You know, you give that to me and I'm going to hook it up and I'm going to sit down and play with my kid and we're going to have a great time. That's it, you know? And the cool thing is I know we're going to have a great time because we already did. Right? You know, like I took my son to Pennsylvania to the Crayola experience and put him in front of the thing. And he was like, this is cool. That's all I need. You know, it's all good. But yeah, so it's cool though, just to see though that there's some people that still have so much passion about these retro games that they want to do that. And on every side, you know, there's people at Atari love all those games. I am very excited in both sense for the Brick Breaker reimaginings that are about to descend upon us, because Atari's got Breakout Recharge coming out next week. I'm going to get that immediately. Because it's still in that same like neon aesthetic. We get the cool power ups, so it makes it a little like Arkanoid, where that didn't really exist in the first Breakout game. So that's really cool. You know,
plus you have the control. See, that's the other thing too. I want to say that on the VCS, it's a different experience because you have the controllers that are more tailored to it versus like for the PS4. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I would want paddle controllers if I'm going to get that. So
so on the Atari VCS,
that spinner,
you know, you can just, it's built into the controller. You know, so yeah. I mean, is it the best? Is this actually a paddle? No, it's not. I mean, people will say, hey, it's great and it works well, and I yes, I agree that it does work well, but it's not a paddle. It needs to be thicker. I mean, you know, like if there was like an attachment to this, you know, just like a piece of plastic that just kind of held on to it, that like made it like a bigger spinner. You could put like a little more meat on your hand when you did the action of spinning. I'd be a lot happier with it, because I don't know, just holding it like this, like you're pinching. It's just, I don't know, the motion is just weird.
Crow,
but
if you're watching, if you're watching, I'm sure you can come up with some cool 3D printed thing, and you can like send it to Rich tomorrow.
Oh yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, just send me the STL. I'll print it myself.
There you go. Yeah,
I got a printer.
And again, I guess it kind of goes back to your saying with the Amico. It's sometimes you have to have like the right hardware with the software, and then it's a reimagined, and you can add more to it. And then I do agree, you should also have the classic titles. And then when you do that, you make everybody happy. And I think that's
and yes, Rigatoni, again with that bundling thing, to offer the original title as a bonus when you buy the reimagined games, I absolutely agree. Especially if you are one of the people that say bought one of these.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? If you own one of these, you know, I say if you buy one of these, you get Moon Patrol, Milky Way Galaxy Chronicles, and Moon Patrol. Like you just do. Now I know Moon Patrol is a bad example because it wasn't a part of the 125, and neither was Missile Command, to be honest. But you know, if it's in that vein, like, you know, Biplanes is one of the games you can get in the package, right? You buy Biplanes, you should get Triple Action. You just should. You know, I completely agree. But you know, like it's not like I work for Intellivision Entertainment or anything. You do that. You get on that. You know, John Alvarado. You get on that. But I don't know. Whatever. So Rigatoni also said, I thought the main stuff with Lunar was that the PlayStation was less grindy and fixed the transition stuff. Yes and no. They did make it less grindy by having those like on-screen encounters. But for me, part of the experience of playing the original Lunar on the Sega CD was the grind. And I know I am the weird person. This should be a topic on its own. Like when you're playing RPGs, to grind or not to grind, what is the question? I am that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
When I played the original Lunar Silver Star story, there was a point where I got about midway through the game and I just started grinding, and I did not stop until every single party member was 99 and had max stats and had everything. And then I went through and just blew through the game. Why? Because that's just what I do. I have an original save on Final Fantasy VII where I think I still have my memory card. And if I do, I would need to find another copy of FF7 because I don't have my disc anymore. But I have a save that I had made so much gil in the game that I was able to get to the end of the game, fight Sephiroth, and use nothing but throw. The command throw gil 9,999 gil, and then mimicked that action. Like I had the yellow materia set on all three other on the other two party members, and just threw gil at Sephiroth through all three phases and beat him by throwing money at him.
See, that's and that adds to the replay value, and that's what I loved about Final Fantasy, because you get to a point where you can choose that, like, you might be able to get to a minimum level and do the boss fight. The boss fight will be a lot harder. You may have to have certain items and luck, but you can do it. Or you can get to a higher level, you're going to beat the game. Or you can do the awesome, crazy, insane thing like, hey, I'm going to max this out, and I'm going to do it just because it's fun. And that adds so much replayability, because it's like you love that game so much. You want to grind. It's like, just give me a reason to play it. And that's like reason enough. And that's awesome. And to your point, if you take away that nostalgia and you take away that fun, then you're like, yeah, y'all didn't have to make the game super easy. You should have, and that's what I kind of mean about leaving it alone. Like, don't, once it ruins the nostalgia, then boom, then that's.
I'm 100% down with that. I mean, especially for something like Lunar, because it's just like, I don't know. I just have I'm so nostalgic for that game, probably because of the fact that, after I got done playing the first one, I wanted the second one so bad that I actually contacted Working Designs and then bought their very last copy of Lunar Eternal Blue from them.
Wow.
And sent to me. So it was like that series is just literally near and dear to my heart. So like I love it so much. And then all those great Working Design game on Sega CD, they all deserve a place to be collected again and re-put out, maybe. Hint in one of these. Like, come on, Vey, Popful Mail. There's that. What the heck was it? There was a shooter. There was a Working Design shooter.
They didn't do Lords of Thunder, did they?
Silpede, I think they did.
Oh, that's a good shooter. Yeah.
On Sega CD, I think they did the Sega CD version of that, because I want to say Silpede was a Game Arts game, and Game Arts was the main developer that they pulled from Working Designs. They pulled a lot of their titles and did that work to bring them to the US. But oh my goodness, they just such a great job putting out those games, and they didn't stop either. Once the Sega CD ran its course, they did it again in Sega Saturn. They did it again on PSX, and a couple of them, they started petering out towards the end, PS2 era, where Vic Ireland, who's the president of Work Designs, the team started collapsing, and they had too much overhead. They couldn't do it anymore. He went and made a new company. That's a whole nother topic. I would love to find him one day on a forum or whatever, get him on there and talk about some cool Working Design stuff. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Somebody says something about Lunar out there. Somebody out there in Zophar's domain, wants to talk about some Lunar, and then say, hey, this crazy guy wants to talk to Victor Ireland, and they happen to know him. Let me know.
So here's
this up.
Yeah.
Gamers@gmail.com.
Dude, email you. So here's what this topic kind of reminds me of, and I think it's audiences. Won't go too far off topics. I know we're getting close to past up there. Kind of reminds me of the heyday of the Sega Saturn, right? So what's interesting is that in Japan, they were willing, let's say, to pay $50 for like a port of like Virtua Fighter or some other like cool shooters that maybe, let's say, you could beat like in 30 minutes or an hour, but because it was an exact port, people were fine with that. Well, American audiences weren't as much. They wanted more out of it. And so that's why you have like a lot of those ports that didn't make it over here.
Yeah.
Just be so maybe it's kind of like the same with remakes. I know kind of like even with the turbo graphics, like in Japan, like a ton more like shoot 'em ups and things. So I think some of it is your audience, but things are different now, right? That things are different now. Like products are global. All you can release stuff for multi regions on system. You don't have that world barrier or whatever you want to call it anymore. So I think just to make everybody happy, it's like if you're going to do a remaster or remake, do the original, because that way someone never has to play the remaster or remake. They can still play the original. It has video game preservation, and you can like you said, it opens the IP up to stuff, and you can kind of do what you want. It gets more hype.
Yeah.
I don't think you can lose if you do that.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then this last topic here, or last comment here for Rigatoni says, that's cool. I like Mario Brothers on the Super Mario Brothers 3 NES cart more than the original release version. I think you're talking about that mini game where you play the original arcade Mario Brothers inside of Super Mario Brothers 3.
They did that with all the GBA. Yeah, they did that with all the GBA releases, which is nice, because you have even with the Super Mario World, they did that, so you can always have Mario Brothers, regular Mario Brothers to go back on. Yeah,
it's cool. That's really neat. And yeah, I think I did like that version. However, there's some more nostalgia for maybe another like episode or something that I should talk about, where I played the wheels off of the 2600 version, the Atari 2600 version of the original arcade Mario Brothers.
Wow.
That game is something else, I will tell you. It is.
I know the 5200 had a pretty good version, and I think maybe the 78, but the 26. Wow, that's
the 2600 version of that game is something else, I'll tell you. I had it in my hands. I will get it back again.
You need to make a video on that. I think that would be.
Oh well, and the story in which I got the game, it's worth it. It's worth it to watch the story about how did I get the original Mario Brothers in 2600. The day I got, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that story.
Hey, before we wrap up, does the audience have any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, before we wrap up, I will go into the final thoughts. If you got anything else you want to talk about in your chat, just throw it in there. We'll slide it in there. But as we're doing that, why don't we do a little? There's not much going on the Bacon Ice Cream side of things till the Evercast, of course. But what do you got going on the Evercade Effect there, guy?
Let me talk about what I have and what I have upcoming. So one thing that I did put out, which I thought was pretty cool, I think the community is liked in general, is I took 4 hours, of the background music of the Evercade and just put that to a video with the logo repeating itself over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, I'm setting that as my alarm, and
Ian Hobbies was pretty thrilled with that. Actually, threw out a comment on the last episode of the Evercast. Thank you for doing that.
And he was the inspiration, because you don't always I know Pete teased me about you can just have your VS on, sure, but like when you're at your computer working, you're not going to necessarily do that, or you don't want to leave your console on. So
if you're at work, then it's not like you're going to bring your Evercade with you.
Yeah. And you could just go there, any time, and there may be another. Let's say there may be, I think that inspired me, I think, to do another 4-hour one.
Nice.
For the music, and I do like how people have liked my Get Good series. As a matter of fact, recently, and I'll tell you what's made me like really really happy about that, because I did one on Lock and Chase, and
nice.
A few people have said like, hey, like I'll give this game a second chance.
That's cool.
And so that really makes me, and again, the Evercade is all about discovery and finding new stuff. So those kind of comments like, oh hey, now that I understand how to play the game, I really like it. And that's the whole point of the Get Good series, and I appreciate that. And people seem to be liking the reviews that I've been doing on the arcade releases and everything else. And then I think one thing I'm going to do, not necessarily a monthly thing, but because I change my mind so much, I get bored of games easily. I think maybe I'll try to do maybe once a month, like what are my current top 10 in 10 minutes. People seem to kind of like that, and I do. I'm going to wait until the next selection of cards come out, because that's going to shake everything up.
Got it. Yes. Yeah. No, it will. Getting a fresh batch of games is always going to be a good time. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
cool.
just it's all about just like playing games and discovering stuff and making people aware. And one thing, let me plug here real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So I am getting close to the 300 subs. I think like 285.
Nice.
And we get to and so two of these, these were just this one I picked up an extra copy of Oliver Twins. These two, when I got my Evercade replaced, those were in the premium collection, still sealed. And I think initially, I was going to make people wait to get to because every 100. Once I got to 300, I'm like, okay, first I'll give I'll give away this and that, but I'm going to be nice and let people choose. So 300 subs, I'll raffle off. You can choose Namco Collection, you can choose Interplay One, or you can choose this.
Oliver Twins.
And the only reason this one is unsealed because since I got an extra copy and I had the option to get the European version, I wanted because I wanted it to match my other Codemasters collect. The Codemasters, I wanted them to both be the Peggy version. But when I get to 300, we'll do a wrap. I'm not sure. I probably will do it. We'll do it on the on Evercast. Figure out a way to raffle that off. And then when I get to 400, I'll give another one away. And then the last one, and who knows, Interplay maybe one of those collections that gets retired that everyone wants. So.
Well, I mean, the other two are collections that are getting retired, so that's a great way. That's a good gift. That's a good giveaway. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, speaking of, I got to start doing something during this week of hiatus. I got a plan for the celebration. We crested over 750 over here at Bacon Ice Cream Productions, which is awesome. So we're on our way, and we got to do some cool giveaway stuff because it's the way of giving back to the community for showing kindness to us. So it's all good.
You know what? Either that or because or that or wait or we could really do it when you get to 1,000 because I feel confident you're going to get there soon.
You had the 7800 version of Mario Brothers, Rigatoni, complete in box. That's awesome. Yeah, I had the 2600 version complete in box, but
How many subs are you at? You're at 7.
You know what happens there. What's up?
How many subs are you at? 7
right now, 762.
Since you brought up 7,800, I'm like, when do you get to 780? I don't know. Just being silly.
That'd be awesome. We get to 780, find some 7,800 games and
that way you can do that way you can do some giveaways, and then when you get to 1,000, we can do the whole bacon ice cream where we eat bacon on ice cream. Ice cream live.
I cannot wait. It's good. It's very good. I'll retell the story of how Bacon Ice Cream Productions came to be.
That's so great.
We can all do the exact thing that made our company name become a company name together, and that'd be cool. I
will say that there's a chain now. I just looked at it called Duck Donuts, and you can get customized. And I got bacon on donuts, and my only regret, because we got a 12-pack, I should have gotten it all. Like once I had bacon on donuts, I felt weird eating a donut without bacon. I know that sounds.
Yep, they opened the Duck Donuts about 4.5 months before I realized that my body did not accept gluten anymore.
Oh no!
So I can't go to Duck Donuts anymore. But there was one that opened right down the street in Greenbrook.
It's pretty good for a dozen. It's like $20. And you can get anything on it. So ASMR stuff. Yeah. So I'm telling you, man, that's a hit. That 4-hour stream thing is a pretty cool thing, man. Well, I'm gonna do another 4-hour one and try to get it. I'll try to get it ready for this next upcoming Evercast, so I can.
Nice.
So I can reveal. So that way you can have 2 4 hours, have a whole 8-hour day, and just.
There you go. Yeah. So you go until lunch on the one, and then just switch to the other. That'd be kind of cool. That's neat. All right, awesome. So I think that's what do you think? That's about wrapping it up for today. I want to definitely thank everybody for chilling out with us and hanging in. It was a good one. I like this one.
And if you're watching this on the replay, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Comment down below. It helps. It helps us out. This channel is, for everybody, for all retro gamers. That's me and Rich's goal to grow. Right. And we created content. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.
See ya.
Calling all retro gamers. This concludes our broadcast day.